A bet and a ball cost $1.10 in total. The bet costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? The intuitive answer is 10 cents, but upon reflection, you realize the correct answer is 5 cents. This question is designed to expose the tension between two modes of thinking, what psychologists call dual process theory. System 1 is basically our intuition. It makes fast decisions without much thinking. System 2 is analytical, slow, and deliberate thinking. The bet and ball question is formulated in such a way to lead one to answer intuitively. Only on reflection do you catch it. System 1 or 2 are not new ideas. They have been proposed for a while. But I came across an interesting preprint recently that suggests a System 3, and I really have trouble accepting it. The new preprint suggests that System 3 is, well, outside our brains. The authors propose that System 3 is an external, automated, data-driven, algorithmic system. In other words, AI. They argue we consult AI when making decisions, meaning AI impacts our decision-making. But neither System 1 nor System 2 account for this, so they propose System 3. And they suggest we cognitively surrender to this system, outsourcing our decision-making processes. To back this claim, they ran several studies where people had to give answers to questions measuring cognitive reflection, questions like the bet and the ball. One group worked on solving 7 such problems using their own brains only. Another had access to AI. The people that had access to AI used it on roughly half of the problems, though some people used it on every trial and others barely used it at all. Now, the researchers had set up the AI to give the wrong intuitive answers on half the trials and the correct answer on the other half. And what happened? On the problems where AI was consulted and gave the correct answer, accuracy was higher compared to the group that had no access to AI. But on trials when AI gave wrong answers, accuracy was worse. This looks to be aligned with the idea of cognitive surrender. People defaulted to the AI answer, so if it was correct, they performed better, and if it was wrong, they performed worse. This pattern persisted under time pressure and was somewhat reduced when participants were motivated to be accurate, but it didn't go away. Now, this in itself is not a new finding. There are many studies in the literature that show people tend to trust AI and rely on it too much. I really have trouble accepting the idea of System 3, cognition that operates outside one's brain. If we follow the logic of the author, when we don't know something and ask Google or an expert, we would also be cognitively surrendering ourselves. Are students in lecture theaters not engaging in cognitive surrender? The lecturer is an external source of information influencing the student's cognitive processes, just like the authors argue AI is. When your GP explains what's wrong with you, aren't you also engaging in cognitive surrender? You go to your GP, they diagnose you. Hey, you just used System 3 and outsourced your thinking to them. Obviously, I'm exaggerating. But am I? Because I generally don't see how consulting an AI is different from consulting anyone else. Yes, AI is external, automated, data-driven, algorithmic, immediate, interactive, knowledgeable. But is consulting AI psychologically any different from consulting any other external source? Trusting AI doesn't require a new system. It's already explained by System 2, such as deliberate judgment that AI is usually reliable, or by System 1, such as a heuristic that we should trust AI. Either way, we don't need a System 3. Now, the authors anticipated this objection. Study 3 was their attempt to address it. Participants were told whether they were right or wrong right after each answer, and if they were right, they earned a small bonus, an incentive to be correct. The authors argue that if AI trust were just a System 1 heuristic, then giving people direct feedback that the AI is wrong should make them stop trusting it. Since participants kept deferring even with feedback, the authors take this as evidence for something deeper than a heuristic, such as cognitive surrender. But were 7 trials enough for the intuition to develop? I don't think so. In everyday settings, large language models aren't programmed to give us wrong intuitive answers, so participants in the study hadn't had the time to develop the intuition that this particular AI shouldn't be trusted. Most of us have spent enough time using AI to know it's usually right. Few counterexamples aren't going to overturn that prior. In everyday life, people may calibrate trust more dynamically than this paradigm allows. What I also think is lacking in this paper is a lack of comparison to an expert. The authors argue that System 3 is AI specific, but if people were consulting an expert rather than AI, would they still be likely to cognitively surrender? If so, then there is nothing special about cognitive surrender to AI. The phenomenon may reflect familiar mechanisms like automation bias, epistemic outsourcing, and cognitive laziness, rather than a distinct AI specific system. Without that comparison, what they have actually shown is that people trust authoritative sounding sources, which we already knew. Over reliance on AI is a real and important phenomenon. I just don't think we need to invent a third cognitive system to talk about it.